Hello, in yet another video, and welcome back. I hope you all are in good health. So, in this video, we are going to look at literary theory. So, what is literary theory? So, the term literary theory is used to refer to the various approaches, scholarly approaches, that we use to read literature or texts. Scholarly. Okay. Or in other words, we can say it is the body of ideas or methods that we use to delve deeper to the meaning of text, right? But mind you, by literary theory, we don't mean the meaning. Not the meaning of the text, but the theories, various theories or methods that we use to get to the meaning of a text, right? Okay. Approaches. Okay. And the approaches that we use to understand the meaning of a text, that may be informed by various other multidisciplinary things, like it may be informed by cultural studies. Roughly meaning that while we are trying to understand the meaning, in order to understand the meaning of a text, we have to refer to the culture. We are going to study culture as well, right? In one way or the other. Or it may be informed by semiotics, a language study. It may be, again, in order to understand the meaning of a text, we have to understand the language first. Okay, I hope this is understood so far. Although there's going to be a separate video on literary criticism, but I think it's pertinent to tell you a little bit about the difference between literary criticism and literary theory, right? And as I said, this refers to the methods that we use or the approach that we use to understand literature. It doesn't refer to actual using or actual use of those methods. That comes under criticism, right? And we use those methods. For example, when we use a theory called feminism to understand a text, for instance, to understand Hamlet of Shakespeare, to understand the character of Ophelia in this text, we are doing literary criticism. So we can say, if you are doing your research on this text, or you're going to study the character of Ophelia, apart from being a researcher, you're going to be a literary critic, for example, because you are using this theory to apply to this. You're practically doing criticism, right? What you're doing is practical criticism, right? So I hope this much is understood. I'm going to rub a little bit of it so that we can write more. Okay, I'm trying to repeat the things while we can use the more mainstream metaphor that is commonly used for literary theory. Is it's a glass. It's a glass that you're using to look at the text, right? Okay, literary theory is the glass or the specs that you're using. It may be different colors. Maybe, for example, the colors may refer to feminism, it may refer to new historicism, it may refer to postcolonialism, right? When you are actually using that to look at the text, actual use on a specific author, that is literary criticism, right? I hope you understand this much. The specs that you're using, the colors that you're using, when you actually use that is literary criticism. I hope I'm clear. Okay, so there is a common misconception that literary criticism is the first that came on the scene and literary theory followed. That's not right, because we have a whole tradition from Aristotle, Plato, we have Longinus, we have Horace, right? They were literary theorists. Even if they were critics, they were primarily theorists, right? The main keyword in literary criticism is that it is used for a specific author, right? Although Aristotle may be using, although he mentions in his plays, he does refer to Sophocles to get his point clear and to make us understand. He refers to Oedipus Rex, right? primarily he is a theorist. First he gives us a theory, he talks about the methods, he talks about ideas, a broad range of ideas. Then he may be applying that. He doesn't, but he may be applying that. So he is primarily a theorist, then is he a critic, right? Okay. As in English tradition, since we are dealing with English literature, and we have Sidney, right? He's talking in general terms. He's talking in his defense of poetry. He's talking about what a literature should do, literary work should do. It should teach and delight us, right? He took that from Horace. Teach and delight. That was from Horace. Also, he was influenced by Ovid, the Roman poet, right? So as we can see, he doesn't use any individual author. He doesn't use any specific text. He doesn't talk about that. He talks in general terms about what a literature or literary work should do. Okay. He's not using any theory to apply to any specific author. So he is a theorist. We have Dr. Johnson. As you might have heard about the lives of poets. He is a literary critic because he has included certain authors. For example, he has used his theories to talk about authors like Ibrahim Cowley. So what he's doing is he's applying his theories on certain authors. So we can say he is a critic. But Sidney, he is a theorist, primarily a theorist. This person is a critic. Although some people may say that literary theory came on the scene in roundabout in 1960s after First and Second World War. That's right, but we had authors before that. It's just that they were not being labeled as such. They were not talking in systematic terms. They were not using certain labels for themselves. They were not saying, for example, we are feminists, we are post-colonial critiques, right? They were not saying that, although they were theorists. So we can say in proper sense, it did begin in, more officially, it did begin in 1960s, but it was there on the scene before that, right? I hope I'm clear. So let's move on. So before moving on to the various theories of 1960s and that followed that decade, there's one thing that you had to understand, and that is liberal humanism. Oh, I'm so sorry. So before theory came on the scene, we had liberal humanism that dominated the scene. So theory came after it, and all the theories that followed 1960s and afterwards, all of them, in one way or other, they oppose this. They oppose this liberal humanism. Okay. So what is liberal humanism? We're going to understand this as we move on. So there are certain characteristics that we should talk about before we move on to the chronology of various theories that came on. So one of the main tenets of liberal humanism was that they used to believe, or you can say a characteristic of liberal humanism, is that they used to believe that human nature is absolute. It's something that cannot be changed, right? It's static. They were believing that although as we have characters in novels or other literary works, they used to believe that although characters can modify themselves, they can develop, they cannot change, right? Same used to be the belief of liberal humanism about humanity in nature, or humanity or human nature in general, right? Okay. Other thing about them was that they were believing that literary text is something that is transcendental. It's transcendental. It has got nothing to do with context, with background. Okay. For example, they used to believe, to understand Shakespeare, we got nothing to do with Elizabethan age. Okay. It's transcendental. It moves beyond time. We have Shakespeare, who is timeless. That's to be the kind of belief they had. Okay. And another belief that they used to have, since they were essentialistic, they used to believe that every person has the same nature. Okay, they were not believing in something called a specific experience and specific natures. For example, they completely used to disregard the issues of race or class. They used to believe that experiences that a person is going to have is similar with everybody else. Okay, so they were essentialistic. Please excuse my handwriting, it's very bad. Pen is not working. So the concerns that were later on taken by post-colonial critics and feminists, for example, they were not believing in those sort of things. The issues of race, gender, that didn't used to be. I mean, that was not their concern. Okay, all right. So I'll be rubbing this again. So in 1930s and 50s, we had liberal humanism that was dominant. The beliefs of liberal humanists was the common belief that used to be the default or general belief of people and theorists. Okay, and there isn't any rigid rule about the proper beginning of theory. It had already begun by or during 1930s itself. For example, we have Marxism that was kind of coming up on the scene, but that didn't quite succeed. And then during 1960s, that was quite dominant again. And apart from Marxism, we had psychoanalysis, we had Freud, we had Marx. Because of the capitalism, right? We know industrial revolution and consumerism, all of these things. And Marx and Freud came on the scene, and with them, these two were the pioneers of modernism as well. And in addition to them, we had Darwin, you might be knowing that. We had Nietzsche. Okay, so these were the four people who were the forefathers of modernism. So Marx, as a theorist, look how his theory opposed liberal humanists. As you know, as I have already said it, liberal humanists used to believe that human nature is something that is universal, that is something that's natural. Marx said no, that is something that is a construct, kind of. That is something that is motivated by material forces. The economy determines that, right? So sorry. As you might have heard, which is a famous quote, that roughly speaking, your consciousness is motivated by material forces, not the other way around. Okay, your consciousness doesn't create the material forces, rather material forces create your consciousness. Okay, so that was a direct attack on the basic tenet of liberal humanism. So we've seen how it was a theory. One of the aspects, which was on the aspects of theory, is that it attacks liberal humanism, as I have already said it. Seems the case with psychoanalysis. Freud also attacked part of it. And almost at the same time, we had feminists as well. First wave, second wave, first wave probably. And we had linguistics. Alright, I hope this is understood. So I'm going to wrap it again. Moving on, 1970s, we had structuralism and poststructuralism that were quite very dominant. Both of them began in France, and so they were mainly concerned about the language. Before structuralism, we had philology, for example, that used to study language as literally, I mean, as history, or it used to look at historical aspect of language, how it has evolved as language. Okay, but structuralism, what it did is it focused on one language or group of languages and used to look at them in the present time, not at the evolution of language, but language as a structure in itself. So there are other aspects of these theories. We are going to do separate videos on them, if God wills. And moving on to 1980s, we had cultural materialism, and we had new historicism, and we had what we generally call a return or turn to history, right? As we've just seen, that history was not the main concern of structuralists and post-structuralists, but it came again on the scene with cultural materialists and new historicists. They were concerned about the historical context or historical background of a text. Okay, they would say that in order to understand a text, we have to look at the background as well. For example, we have to look at Elizabethan age and what the things that were happening at that time to understand Shakespeare's plays, for instance. Okay, so again, we can see the basic tenet of liberal humanism that a text has got nothing to do with context, with its history, its historical background, is again refuted by cultural materialists and new historicists. Okay, because for them context and history is the main thing for the understanding of a text. Okay, so moving further on, we have 1990s, when we had something called eclecticism or special interests. By these terms, I mean things that were disregarded in liberal humanism, they were taken up. For example, liberal humanists used to believe, as I have said it already, that human nature is something that's universal, same with everybody. But during 1990s, we had a shift, but in the specific experiences of people were taken up, right? For example, the issues of race, the issue of gender, they were counted for, because gender was not considered something that is universal. For example, male doesn't feel the discriminations that a female does, or a black man, the experiences that a black man is going to have, white man will not have them, right? So liberal humanists believe that nature is something universal was refuted, because the issues or the experiences that only a certain group of people or certain class or race is going to have, they were taken into account, right? They were the main issues of theorists during 1990s. For example, we have feminists, third wave dealing with gender issues, and we had race theories dealing with the issue of race, right? Even in feminism, we had womanism, begun by Alice Walker, that dealt with the issue of race in feminism itself. I mean, the things that were not taken up by feminism, feminists were also kind of essentialists. They used to believe that the experiences that a woman is going to have would be same with everyone, everywhere. Feminists said, no, blacks have some specific experiences that only they suffer, some pains that only they are going to suffer, not the white female. Even if they are feminists, they are not going to have the issues that black women are going to have. So kind of we can say black women were doubly marginalized. One was the issue of race because they were black, and the second was the patriarchy. They were exploited by men. Okay, so apart from that, we had gay studies, we had lesbians. Okay, so the issues that were faced by only certain group of people, they were taken up during 1990s and further on. Okay, so during 1990s, the main concern was something called otherness, or experiences or issues that only certain people are having, right? Okay, so trying to sum up what we read is the main thing. The liberal humanists main belief that human nature is something that is static, that is something that cannot be changed, was refuted by literary theories into 1960s. For example, we have Marx, we have Freud, right? Disregarding the main belief of liberal humanism. And another belief of liberal humanism, that literary text is transcendental, it's timeless, it's got nothing to do with context. It again was disregarded by theories, right? And another thing, that nature is universal, it's same with everybody, that too was opposed by theories in 1960s by focusing on specific issues, as I said, gender, the issue of gender, race, and other things. And as we have postcolonialism, feminism, focusing on issues that are only faced by a certain group of people, not everybody is facing them. Okay, so that was it from my side. I hope you got benefited from this video. As I've said it in the title, it's just an idea so that you will be able to talk about this theory a little bit, or you'll be able to answer the question, what is theory? So further on, if you want me to make a specific video on certain topic, you can recommend or suggest in the comment section below. And please do like, share, and subscribe so that I'll also be motivated a bit to upload further on. So thank you so much for bearing with me, and goodbye.